Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Backstage Spotlight. Today I am with a playwright, Nathan Queeley Dennis. Hello, and how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for joining me. Would you like to give a little brief introduction to how you got into playwriting?
Of course. I originally started as an actor, so I've been performing since I was quite young, and within that, from like college to drama school, I've always enjoyed kind of having a bit more of a handle on the work that I was doing, whether it was like devised or improvised or anything like that. And I think I've always sort of had an affinity to writing through that. And then I was acting, I was performing, and I ended up entering for a monologue competition, which and I couldn't really find a monologue that I thought was suitable for me. So I ended up writing my own, as a friend suggested. Maybe that's something that you'd enjoy doing. And I loved it. I did that monologue competition. I got through to the national final. And then I wrote another monologue that was the same character, but at a different point in their lives. And I didn't win the national final, but a lot of people came up after me and were like asking, like, "Oh, that was really good. Do you have a longer version of that?" And I was like, "Yeah," just because like fake it till you make it kind of thing. Just
So
to,
true.
yeah, I was just like, "Yeah, sure, why not? If you're interested." And then they were like, "We'd love for you to send it." And then I kind of spent the next couple of months being like, "Oh crap, write, I better write this into a play," which I kind of didn't do. But then over the course of like 9 months or so, I sort of committed to actually like making it longer than just a monologue into more of like a full length script. And I must have had about 10 pages of this script. And then a bit more time passed. I sent it off for another competition called Pint-Sized Plays, where they do sharings of your play at the Old Bunker Theatre in London Bridge in London. And I got selected on the shortlist of five plays for that. And that meant the play got to get performed in London in front of an audience, and I luckily got to watch one of the performances. And I was like, oh, okay, this works. And then I sent it off for another thing to have a sharing at Vaults. Vaults, unfortunately, that year, the day I was meant to go into tech was cancelled because of COVID.
Oh,
And then and then over that kind of period, I didn't do as much writing, but I kind of had two-ish years where I kind of just towards the latter half of that 2 years, I kind of was like, you know what, I need to complete this play. I need to finish it. I need to write it. Let's get it sorted. And yeah, in the end, I kind of had this finished play by around May 2022, probably.
that
So this is like a real quick run through of like 4 years of my life, basically.
is.
And I had this finished play and I sent it off for the Bruntwood Prize for Playwriting, just hoping to get. Well, I tried to send it off for other ones, but I just missed every other deadline. Um, and then I sent off for the Brooklyn Prize for playwriting, hoping to get just feedback. And then I ended up winning it in um, November 2023. And then I've basically been able to sort of write ever since then, which has been great.
That is a fantastic story. And how did it feel to win the Bruntwood award, like the prize for it? Because that is so rewarding to have someone recognize your work to such a high level.
Yeah, no, honestly, it was quite surreal to be honest. I mean, it was surreal just getting shortlisted. I just was already when I got shortlisted, I was like, oh, this is because I was always a bit tentative in the first instance of applying for it, just because I was just the plays and the writers that have come from it. I was just like, I don't think I'm ever a part of that. I think I've always said winning it was kind of very like self-affirming. It kind of as soon as I won it, I think it's easy to kind of have a sense of imposter syndrome or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I kind of had the complete opposite because I think up until that point I'd had imposter syndrome of like, why am I even doing this? Why is this worth my time? Like I'm wasting my time by doing this. No one's I've sent this to about three people. But yeah, as soon as I won it kind of was just like, no, this is what you should be doing. And people clearly care about what you have to say, or at least what the characters have to say. So yeah, it was very like it was almost like a driver and a motivator to really kind of lock in, basically.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I wanted to ask you what your process was when it comes to writing. How does your thought process work, and where do you start when it comes to creating something new?
Sure, I am. I'd say I'm a bit of a mess. In the sense of my brain juggles about 15 different things at any one point. Um, and it's kind of like chaos, but I like to think of it as like a beautiful chaos because the amount of times where I write in chronological order as well. I can't, if I have a finished piece of work, I can then go back but if I'm starting, I have to go from the beginning all the way through,
Yeah.
which kind of means as I go along, I sort of have to thread different kind of bits of story and character that I need to along the way as I go along, and it's just kind of got to sit in my brain. So there's sort of like a beautiful chaos that sort of sits in it. When I talk to other friends and stuff about it, they say I'm crazy to work like that, and I'm sure there's probably more efficient ways, but it is the way that works for me. But yeah, I like to, and I'm quite intense. I like to just sit down and I will lock myself in a room for 3 days and I'll spend a day and a half procrastinating. And then I'll spend the other day and a half actually like writing. And then when it comes to like what I want to write, I think I just try to, I don't, and it's kind of selfish, but I think like there's no point otherwise. But I wouldn't write anything that I wouldn't want to watch myself.
Of
And it
course.
doesn't necessarily mean I don't relate to it, for example, but will always kind of create things that I think are interesting to watch, and otherwise there's no it's hard to stay motivated with the piece of work that you're creating in that regard if it's something that you don't actually have a care for.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with that. So, who would you say your biggest inspirations are in what you do? And is
Hmm.
there anything in particular that inspires you when you sit down and do the creativity, start the writing?
I'd say I'm not really not to take away from any other writers. There are loads of writers that I absolutely love, and I definitely feel like probably influenced me and stuff. But I'd say I'm inspired by like just loads of different art forms. I think anyone who creates or um does any kind of form of creative work in any way, shape, or form. Like I think there are like dancers and the way they can tell their story with their bodies, or like musicians through music and artists through like drawing and stuff like that. I think any of those kind of people that can bring something together are probably the people that inspire me the most. But like, and honestly, the people that inspire me the most, genuinely as well, outside of that, are just like my friends.
The people around
Seeing
you.
yeah, those are the people that I care about and I interact with the most. There are people out there that are great and I can look to them, but I don't know them. But seeing my friends do really well, like I say, the reason I started writing my play was because my friend suggested I write a monologue, and she only suggested that because she wrote a monologue herself. And that was sort of the starting point of that ever happening. And if she didn't do that in the first place, she wouldn't have suggested that to me. I wouldn't probably be talking to you right now. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
in a weird way, yeah. So like yeah, I think like my close friends, and I've got a lot of close friends doing in the arts, doing really great things. I've got friends not in the arts that are doing really well, and I just think seeing people around me that I care for doing well is probably the thing that inspires and motivates me the most.
Yeah, that's really lovely. I absolutely love that. So, say your show gets put on and you
Hmm.
work with creatives to bring this to life. Are you involved in the casting process?
I think you can be. It depends. There are some writers that are a lot more standoffish with that kind of they just want their words to be they find a director and they go, look, this is your kind of baby now, do what you want. And then there are some times where a writer maybe, especially if it's early on, maybe a bit more like, I want to be involved with this
Yeah.
from the
Bring-
very beginning. So yeah, exactly. So it does really depend on the writer and also who's producing it because sometimes it can be a producer from, for example, America, and they're doing a production in Chicago, and it's like, well, the writer's probably not going to get as involved for that. But then, if it's something, if it's like your new play and it's been this kind of labor of love, I'm sure they'll be involved to an extent where they'll be in the room and they'll definitely give their kind of opinions to the director and the casting director. But I like the idea personally of kind of letting the creative, if I'm just involved purely as a writer, often letting I mean, I'm saying this now and I'm already like, would I? But I'm like, I'd like the idea of just being able to go, here's the writing, finding a director you really trust and being like, you can do what you want with
Mm.
that. And obviously, because that's where the director takes kind of over the kind of reins of the project. But then in the same breath, I'm like, oh, but I would want to just have a little, just a little sit down and a look.
Yeah,
I'll
and
show up.
I
I'll say
suppose,
hi.
sorry to interrupt you. I suppose it's interesting to see the interpretation of the director of your writings.
Yeah,
Could be like an interesting take on it.
100%. So I've had that very recently where it's where somebody else performed my play with a different director to the original production, and I got to watch it, and I had no input, and it's so much fun seeing because as a writer, there's always going to be a voice in your head, but it's so interesting to see what a different director and a different actor can bring to it. And I always think it's a sign of good writing when your work can be interpreted in different ways, but still kind of hold the same sort of like essence and energy that it has in the initial phase. So that's always like kind of like a joy of being a writer.
Yeah, it's great. So, what does your future look like, do you think? Where would you like to be in, say, 5 years?
Oh, you know what? It's such a hard question because if you said that to me 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have said where I am now in 5 years. In 5 years, I'd love to have. I think for me, I've just always wanted to kind of touch base in every single like city and theater and like place. I think I want to be able to say that I've done a bit of everything. So um like yeah, I think I just want to be able to kind of invite. I'd love in 5 years' time to just be on my way on that journey, having had, if not plays on in certain venues, have performed in certain venues, and yeah, I'd love to yeah have I'd love to have in 5 years' time. I'd love to have like at least two more plays out in the world by that point. So yeah, I think there and ultimately, and I don't know, maybe I'll get a dog in that time too or something.
Yes.
That would be good. Yeah, I'll get a dog or something.
A writing companion.
Yeah, exactly. Just to sit on the desk there, but
Oh, so cute. So, for young budding writers, where would you advise they start if they're listening in and thinking, I think I want to be a writer in the future, but I have no idea how to go about it? What would your advice be as someone who's doing it currently?
I'd say, and I'd always say, don't feel like there's one specific path to take. I'd say there are loads of different entry points and paths that you can take to get into writing and becoming a writer in whichever way, shape, or form you think is appropriate. So don't feel like because one person's done one route, you have to do that route. And if that route doesn't work for you, it's game over from there. I'd say just keep your eyes open for opportunities, keep an eye on various different theaters and like websites, and also find, I think one of the most important things I'd say is like find like your community, find a group of people, a group of friends around the same point of the career as you, like people that you can, have a group chat with or people that you can just text and get in touch with. I've got loads of different friends that are writers that I can message regularly, and we go through the same things. We talk about contracts. We talk about things that sometimes you might be afraid to talk to, I don't know, an agent or a TV producer or any of those kind of people with. We can have those conversations, and some of these people I've been friends with for ages, but it's just our careers are sort of like kind of gone together like at the same point. And I think it's important to have a group of people you can fall back on because it can be quite a lonely job where it's like you're just sat down by yourself writing and you really hold on to the characters you're writing. And if you're writing something heavy, you'll find for the rest of your day, you're kind of, say you've written this big emotional scene and because you've written those words, you thought those words are in your brain, you almost trick your brain into thinking that's how you feel.
Yeah.
And it's good to kind of have, yeah, it's good to have like a release from that. So I'd say find like your community, find people. And I'd also say like there's just no rules. Like do what you think is, don't feel like you need to follow any kind of specific guideline. If you think you have a story to tell, then just write it. There's no one to tell you no and no one to stop you. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really lovely advice. Hope that people listening, well, they will have appreciated that. So thank you.
Yeah.
What is your favorite subject matter to write about? Do you have a certain theme that your work like revolves around?
Yeah, I'd say I don't think I have a certain theme, but I think in the work that I love and the the work that I love and the work that I am writing now or planning on writing or different ideas I have, it always kind of centers around the sort of magic in like the mundanity of life. I think there's a lot of special moments in the very small parts of our lives that we don't appreciate and sort of harvesting things out of that is where I'd like like all of my favorite films sort of have that thing where it's like, what's it about? And it's about this really small thing, but actually it means the world to the person it's about. And from the outside looking in, it means nothing, but it means everything at the same time. And I'd say the work I've done previously is of that similar kind of ilk. And yeah, I'd say that's probably where I like I love other types of work, but the work that really always resonates with me that can move me, um, whether it's move me to laughter, tears, or just like absolute rage, is like always sits in that kind of wheelhouse.
I love that. What would you say your aim is for your audiences to feel? How would you like them to come away from seeing one of your pieces?
I with my most recent play Baller and Techno Makeout Jams, it was kind of an intentional. I wanted the audience to feel like they've gone on a journey, like a romantic sort of roller coaster. But in general, I am almost of the belief that they can feel anything they want as long as they feel something. You
Yeah.
want people to have come out and gone. You want people to come out of any kind of, again, whether it's like a play, a musical, a dance show, an art exhibition, a concert. You want people to come out and you want people to talk. You almost want the play to be the starting point of like a conversation that can happen afterwards, where the people go to like, I don't know, like the pub or to, after or go for a coffee the next day or something, or they're just at work and they're just like, oh, actually I saw this thing and blah blah blah. What do you think? You kind of just want it to be that starting point, and that could be because someone really disagreed with your viewpoint. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because if they disagree with it, it means that it's made them think or feel a certain type of way. So they can sort of you're doing your job if people want to talk about it, even if they disagree with it. So as long as people sort of have an opinion or a feeling, that's great. I like it. The last play I did intentionally, I wanted people to go away with a kind of feeling of like warmth and a kind of feeling of optimism and hope.
Nice.
Um, and I think somewhere along the lines, everything I'm sort of working on at this point has a similar kind of energy to it. But as long as people have something they want to say afterwards, I think that's kind of like the gold spot.
Definitely. Are you working on anything exciting that you can talk to us about at the moment?
I working on anything exciting I can talk to you about. I'm working on a couple of projects. I'm working on, I can't go too in depth about everything, but I'm working on a new play that I've been commissioned to write, which is, can I say what it's about? Maybe. It
I don't want you to
is,
get in trouble.
no, no, I'm just, that's what I'm trying to, I mean, it's my idea. what can I say? It's like a reunion play. Oh, that's not a great way to sell it, is it? But like it's like a reunion play. That's all I can say.
Nice.
But
No,
it's a fun reunion. It's a reunion that you wouldn't necessarily think of that kind of it's almost like it's a reunion of a group of people we see often in like pop culture in the public eye, and it's about a reunion of them, and it's kind of about untapped potential and being the most important person in the world at one point and not being that anymore. It's sort of about that. That's all I can say about that. And
sweet.
then I'm currently working on some television projects with Kudos, who make like SES Rogue Heroes and they make This Town, which was out last year, and loads of other shows. And I'm also working on a couple of projects with Pulse Films, who make Gangs of London, and I'm working on another TV project with the Story Collective, and I'm working on a film with Warp Films, who have made like This Is England, and yeah, and it's all about Jamie and everything, film of that and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I've got a lot on my
I was
plate
just gonna
currently, but
say, like, I thought you were just gonna give me one, and you've given me about fantastic.
that's a few of them. That's a few of them that I feel like I could say vaguely enough without getting myself in trouble.
That's great. So I've got a question off the back of that because
Hit me.
gosh, your brain must be absolutely frazzled with all this new work. And where does the creativity come from? So do you write in a way that it doesn't feel repetitive and that the ideas feel new and specific to that project?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of like what I said. I kind of said it earlier. Uh, my brain like kind of has about 15 things going on at any one point. So I think like as a kid, it was kind of like, can you pay attention for 5 minutes?
But
But
no,
now as an adult, it's like, oh my gosh, why didn't we cultivate this ability sooner? Do you know what I mean? But
it's a superpower.
yeah, exactly. So I'm quite good at being able to the way you just have to compartmentalize everything and kind of take. So for example, I've spent most of this week working on one specific project, and then I will just, as soon as I've sent an email off, I will then go, no more, and then I'll go to another project for something else. I'll try not to do two things in one day at any point, unless I'm working on something for like an hour. Um, then I will never do two things in one, or unless I'm really pressed for time, I'll never do more than two things in one day. And I'll always try and make sure, and I always just try and make sure I have breaks and do things that bring me joy and can clear my mind, whether it's
Yeah.
going for a walk or going to the gym or going to the cinema is really good because you can watch films at home, but I think there's something about being in a dark room with a big screen that just,
From the
so
outside.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So does this bring you late nights and a bit of insomnia?
No, it doesn't actually. I'm very I
That is
think because say that again, sorry.
that is impressive.
No, shall I tell you why? I coming into I just heard so many horror stories, and when it was kind of like, okay, after I won the prize, I was like, I'm going to be really strict with how because like I say, I was an actor before, as an actor, I still act, but I was an actor before I won the prize, and I was kind of like, I need to make sure I don't fall into the same traps I fell into early in my career as an actor of just like really unhealthy, like kind of living habits of like not bringing like packed lunches to rehearsals or just like eating really unhealthily and then getting sick all the time and da 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 da. So I was just really like strict on being like I will work. Sometimes I do work late. I'm not gonna lie, but again, those are like under very specific circumstances. But I try to make sure I do like a regular kind of I say a regular working day, but like sometimes I'll start at like and sometimes I'll finish at like 7 or 8. But most times I'll try and do like a 10 till 5, 10 till 6, or a 9 till 5 and 9 till 6. And I try not to do much outside of that. Like once it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have my dinner now. I don't do anything else afterwards.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really it means it also structure's so important in the industry, isn't it? Of just like having a so I always try to make sure that's my structure. But just because I'm not working doesn't mean my brain isn't like I've stayed up. I've been up. I've gone to bed at like 10 and then I'm still awake at like 4 a.m. just thinking. But what
Yeah.
can you do?
Exactly, exactly. So if you had yourself in 5 years sitting right next to you right now,
Mhm.
what do you think you'd say to yourself? Do you have any words of, encouragement or
Me in 5 years' time, or me
yeah.
in um I'd oh my gosh, I'd say I'd ask him like, has my football team done anything good in the last 5 years? Uh, like, has anything good happened? Just so I know whether it's worth my time following football anymore. And then I'd probably just be like, I'd probably just ask them like, is it like kind of should I'd ask them to help me almost. I'd be like, what do you advise that I do knowing what you know now?
Yeah.
And knowing me, even me in 5 years, I'd probably say, just keep on doing what you're doing. Stop trying to anticipate the future so much. And I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah.
Perseverance and hard work, isn't it? That's what it's about.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Great. And the last question I always ask my podcast guests is, do you know anybody or look up to anyone that you think would be great at imparting their knowledge on this podcast that I will reach out to? So who would you nominate?
Oh, oh my gosh. That's such a big question. I'd nominate he's just in my mind right now because he's just been nominated for an Olivier, but I'd nominate Tom Eden, who is
Good.
an actor. He was in One Man, Two Governors with the National Theatre, and then he's recently just been nominated for an Olivier for Waiting for Godot. So I'd nominate him. He's very fun. I actually bumped into him when I was outside of a shop because I was afraid to buy something in that shop like a couple of weeks ago, and he walked me into the shop and helped me buy the thing.
Oh,
So he's a very fun person. I'd and I feel like he could chat about anything forever. So yeah, I'd recommend him.
okay. I will reach out to him. Thank you so much, Nathan. It's been so interesting hearing about the writing side of the industry because we don't hear it often and it's so nice
Mm,
to hear. So thank you so much. And to everyone
thank
listening,
you.
go and follow Nathan's antics. I mean, he is a very good fan, so I'm sure that we'll be seeing a lot more of your work very soon. So everybody stay tuned. And for the podcast, we'll see you next week. Goodbye. Take care, Nathan.
Bye. Thank you.